The film that most accurately depicts life in the trenches in the First World War is All Quiet on the Western Front. It shows the German side of the war, which is less talked about than the Entente side, with most accounts being from Britain. The film is based on a book by the same name, which is an extraordinary piece of war literature by Erich Remarque. It is similar, to an extent, to Storm of Steel by Ernst Junger, though the latter details more gruesome scenes than those of the former. The book by Remarque was meant to be an anti-war novel, stating in the beginning, "This book is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all an adventure. For death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. I will try simply to tell the tale of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped the shells, were destroyed by the war." With the cast of characters, it is obvious that these men were not men at all before they went to war, nor in fact once they reached France. It was when they reached their first bombardment near the front line they developed more into men. There is a quote from Game of Thrones that accurately described what Remarque was trying to pass on to the reader by Maester Aemon of the Night's Watch, saying, "Kill the boy, Jon Snow. Winter is almost upon us. Kill the boy and let the man be born." In this case, winter is the trench, cold and filled with death, sickness, and depression. The presence of this is clear throughout the book and film, with new recruits being killed, cowardly, shell-shocked, depressed, etc. Remarque himself served in the war, being called to service while at school. Although he only spent a few weeks at the front, he was badly injured, sustaining a bullet wound to the neck and shrapnel in the arm and leg. Returning from service, he was sent to the hospital to recover. After recovering, he served as an orderly in the same hospital until rejoining his battalion in October of 1918. He wrote All Quiet on the Western Front in just a few weeks, though he didn't get it published until 1929. He collected statements from friends from the front, wounded soldiers at the hospital, and his own experience to create a more personal experience for the reader to understand the horrors of war. He wrote the book to try and process it. The story can also be viewed as civilians becoming war animals, sent to destroy the enemy at whatever the cost. He was right in his note before the start of the book, that all soldiers were ruined by the war. And it would be hard to return to civilian life, as seen when Paul Baumer returns from the front after convalescing and saying, "I feel in many ways I am returning back to my home, at the front. It has been more my home than this place is," which rang true with every veteran of the war. The ethics of the First World War, and indeed the previous century, were flawed. Morals went out the window when Gavrilo Princip killed Franz Ferdinand and his wife. It was truly a shot heard around the world. As seen in the book and film, Paul kills a French soldier in a crater. He feels remorse and guilt, and upon opening the man's letters he sees he had a wife, furthering the emotions. He says he would write a letter to her, informing her of her husband's death. He begs the dead corpse of Gerard Duval, the Frenchman he had killed in the crater, for forgiveness, calling him his comrade and furthering that thought with, "Oh God, how could they do this to us? We only wanted to live, you and I. Why should they send us out to fight each other? If we threw away these rifles and these uniforms, you could be my brother, just like Kat and Albert. You'll have to forgive me, comrade." This scene shows remorse one feels in taking another's life, and ending others in the process, like Duval's wife, who is now a war widow. In the beginning, you see the boys' eagerness to join the infantry and serve their country in Kaiser, but they are unaware of the cost, or, if they were, unaware of the toll. World War I will be remembered as a savage war, with a generation of boys, a lot who were younger than 18, sent to the trenches to die for a cause some of them didn't know and some of them didn't understand. I will leave you with a poem by Canadian military doctor Major John McCrae.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields.